All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast. And as usual, I'm your favorite Virgo host. And today, guys, of course, we have another lovely guest joining us that's going to brace my platform with some words of inspiration and tell his story, just some remarkable things. Today, we have joining us Mr. Craig Sotkovsky. How you doing today, sir?
Good. How are
Did
you?
I say it correctly?
Sotkovsky, but yeah.
Sotkovsky. I apologize. I be trying to make sure I get it because I know how it
Listen,
feels.
you won't be the first or you won't be the last.
I understand. But thank you so much, sir, for joining me and taking the time out of your busy schedule to come talk to me and my lovely supporters.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. So before we get into some things, we are going to do our lovely mental health check in with ourselves, make sure we are feeling good. So if you are new to the show, what we do is we rate our mental health on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being that you are in a good space, you're feeling good, and 1 being you're not in the best space, you have some room for porn, but you are managing. So, Mr. Craig, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 5?
I'm I'm always sitting about 4 or 5.
Okay, 4 or 5. Got you. I got you. I like that. Today, as we are recording right now, I'm gonna say I'm at a 4.5. So I'm in a pretty good space. I celebrate every rating, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever. I'm in the midst of celebrating, and when I get these feeling good moments, I really celebrate them because it's been a long time coming, you know? So I do the mental health checks as a way to hold myself accountable for checking in with myself, but to also encourage everyone that's listening to take time out of your busy schedules to also check in with yourself, make sure you are feeling good, your body's intact, you're in alignment, you got some good energy flowing. And if you're not feeling the best, maybe find something else to do, maybe find someone to talk to, but nonetheless, just to take mental health more serious, because it is a serious thing. I think we need to definitely take it serious and focus a little bit more on it. All right. So let's get into some things. So, guys, we're about to get into a remarkable story. I have been waiting for this story. Me and this guy talked some months ago, and it was just supposed to be for like 15 minutes, and it ended up being for like almost 2 hours. And I'm like, oh my God, it was just that so enlightening. So, I know you're going to love him and his energy and everything that he is about to bring today. All right. So, Mr. Stavosky, Sotkovsky.
Craig is good.
All right. Because I don't want to keep messing it up. I apologize, Mr.
All right.
Craig. So you are a man of many things. You wear many capes, you have many titles. Specifically, just doing my research and in conversation with you, I know that you were one of the first responders for 9/11. You are also a cancer survivor, an entrepreneur, an author, a motivational speaker. You're a lot of things, life coach, you're a father, you're a husband. Take us back because I know your story consists of a lot of things, but take us back to how your life was prior to the events of 9/11.
So I've been an entrepreneur ever since I'm a little kid. I was the one with the lemonade stand, the haunted house, whatever we can come up with, selling chocolate door to door, whatever we could hustle.
Mhm.
And for 9/11, entrepreneur, contractor, real estate investor, just one of those guys. I've lived in different cultures,
Mhm.
different countries. One of the profound experiences in my life, I lived in a bush of Jamaica with no electricity, no water for like 6 months. And
What?
yeah, man, with a crazy white man in the bush. So that was one of the things that like really it inspired me to go deeper, right? And when I came back from Jamaica, I was actually living in an abandoned house downtown Jersey City, with no electricity, no water, no windows in the middle of the winter, and that was
Mhm.
to see how much more I could take. And it's brought me to where I am right now.
Mhm.
I love to tell stories about my life, and I encourage people to do the same. The way I look at it is, if you're not telling your story, you're not healed, right?
Mhm.
So when we talk about these emotional attachments that we have to these past circumstances and stories, for me, just through my experience, it was really hard to go through one story, and that was being molested as a child. And after that, it got to drug addiction, bankruptcies, blah, blah, blah. We all have the story, right? I no longer have emotional attachments to the stories that I talk about. And I encourage people to do the same. And that requires some deep, dark, some deep, dark work. And I'm laughing because I believe we all need to laugh at ourselves first and foremost. And if we're not looking in the mirror and laughing at ourselves, we have a big problem. It's called ego. And there's a saying, it's called edging God out. And I believe that God within us is who we have to touch. So I hope that explained a little bit of who I am.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And I am an advocate for, standing or reclaiming your power and using your voice to tell your story. I am also a sexual assault survivor as well. And for me specifically, it took me a while to even call myself a survivor. I'm just like, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I was so sucked into that whole victim mentality that I was like, yeah, I'm a sexual assault victim, I'm a trauma victim. But until I got to the point where I reclaimed my voice and I stepped into my full power, I'm like, you know what? I'm a survivor. I know I've survived many things of life, but that was one of the main things. And
Can I
even,
interrupt you real quick?
Mhm.
Can we just talk about being a thriver?
Sure.
Because survivor, we're still sitting in that victim thought because we're a survivor of something, right? Instead of thriving past it. And I don't mean to interrupt because words are definitely the most important that we could use. And our reticular activating system is listening to everything that we're talking about. So if we're talking about being a survivor, then it's kind of like we're still in that victim mindset instead of being a thriver of somebody that pushed past the survivor.
Y'all see how he be getting with me. This is how our first interaction went.
And I want you to do the same for me because I'm not 100%. We're all
No.
works in progress.
I respect it though. I respect it.
And the thing for me is I want to be corrected. I want somebody to correct me because I believe that's how we learn and we grow. And it's not so much about, oh, I want to correct you about something. It's you have this beautiful energy. You have this beautiful genre, this podcast, right? So you're going to be attracting and are attracting so many amazing people telling their stories. Neurological linguistic program is everything life is about. We're neurological linguistic programming ourselves. So if we're talking about survivorship, it's like, oh, we're survivors. I'm a survivor of being molested as a child or a drug addict, and I'm still sitting in that emotional just conflict with myself. And I encourage people to just keep pounding, pushing, clawing, gnawing, right? And I want my company is from this point forward, okay? And from this point forward, I want to leave people better than what I found them. I want them to leave me better than how they found me. So I just encourage people to use words differently because our ass is listening to everything. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but it's listening to everything that we're saying, everything that we're doing.
Definitely. And not only that, life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I love that. I love that. And normally, for the most part, I'm very good about my speech, but I appreciate that. And I have adopted the mindset of getting in the space of being able to and accepting to be not necessarily corrected, but educated. Because we don't know everything. And sometimes we come in contact with people that have a little bit more wisdom or insight. So I'm always open. I'm always open to some knowledge or something that's going to make me better or help me push that message out. So I appreciate you for checking me. Okay. So moving forward, you were a 9/11 first responder. So how did you get to that position of were you already there in the midst? Because I know like some of the responders, they got them from everywhere, or some of them was just like volunteers. So how did you come in contact with that?
So I was a volunteer. I lived, like I said before, I lived downtown Jersey City, which is right across the river from New York City, which is right across downtown Jersey City, is right across from the World Trade Center. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
that separated us was the Hudson River.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out of my one property on First Street in downtown Jersey City, and I was walking down the street, and I looked up, and I was like, "Whoa, like what is that?"
Mm-hmm.
So I ran around the corner to my fiance at the time, and I was like, "Look," because she was a photographer. I was like, "Look, get your camera, let's go." She's like, "What's up?" I was like, "I don't know, World Trade Center's on fire or something," because nobody knew at that point.
Right.
We actually walked down to the Hudson River.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was pandemonium, chaos, everything that you could possibly. It was like the movies. It really was. It was wild. Sirens going off, horns blaring, like it was just pandemonium. So we got down there, and at that time, like I didn't see it, but the second plane already hit, and we were just like, what is like, what
Mm-hmm.
is
What's
going
going
on?
on?
Right? This is the World Trade Center, and I knew at that time it was like it was complete utter chaos in my head as well. And it was just like listening to the cops on the radios, and everybody's like screaming, yelling, hollering, crying. It was nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife, she was like, what do you think is going to happen?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. Maybe the top part of the building might fall over. I've been construction my whole life: apartment buildings, bridges, tunnel, like not tunnels, sorry. Um, but every kind of construction site you could possibly imagine, I've been on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, at best, at worst, like this thing is going to fall over and probably hit a bunch of buildings and cause a lot of chaos. And as we were talking about that, the first building just coming down. I don't mean to laugh, but
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at something that's so surreal, right?
Right.
And my wife, she has dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures of the first one coming down, like like what?
Wow.
Cops going crazy, telling everybody get back because you don't know what's going to happen, right? We've never seen anything like this. So we ended up walking to Liberty State Park,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a cut through by the boat basin where you could like walk um, and get to Liberty State Park. And as we got to Liberty State Park, before we had gotten there, second one came down.
Mm.
And it was just, and again, she's got boom, 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 like pictures, like crazy pictures. And we get to Liberty State Park and like looking, and that's when a boat started coming. And I
Mm.
don't know the time frame. It could have been a couple hours or whatever, because I mean, it was just complete chaos in everybody's head.
Right.
And the boat started coming, and we started seeing all of these people come off in all kinds of like in shape. Like everybody's crying, bleeding, like it was just craziness. And I
Right.
told her, I was like, listen, I got to get there. I
Yep.
have to get there. I mean, this is the World Trade Center. I've been in construction. I'd rather, be there, and I see all these people coming off. Long story short, it took me a couple days to get there because
Mm, I bet.
they weren't allowing people. They just shut everything down, you know?
Mm.
And it was really weird because and sometimes I think about this, and I'm like, why was I a part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And then I was like, why not? Why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's an incident, right? And long story short, I developed lung cancer. And people were telling me, and this was in 2012, people were like, you should see these attorneys, talk to these attorneys, talk to these people, and I was like, I was only there for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I know so many people that were there for months. Nothing's happened.
Oh,
Nothing,
wow.
nothing's happened to them. And what I found out years later was to qualify for anything, you needed to be there for 4 hours of the first 5 days.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I hit the wrong lottery. I was there 2 days. So it was the wrong lotto.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bunch of procedures done, and they ended up taking my mid and lower lobe of my right lung out. I had a carcinoid tumor between the top part of my lung and my middle part of my lung. And it took me 6 years to overcome the physical pain of that 9-hour surgery.
Mm.
And to this day, I still have, I developed something called Saturday night palsy because I was on a table for 9 hours and my arm was laid out and it had something to do with the nerve in my left arm. So I had to relearn how to use my arm again.
Oh, wow.
I had to relearn how to just maneuver with pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you would think that the modern drugs will help you. Sometimes morphine doesn't work.
I can imagine.
Sometimes it just doesn't. You know, I was one of those people that when they were wheeling me out into like the recovery room, I woke up screaming. I
Oh
was
my God.
screaming because the meds had worn off, my blood pressure had dropped, and they couldn't for a while give me anything. So I was screaming. I had chest tube, catheter, you know, lines, epidural in back, like all of that stuff. But it was a long surgery. And what I realize now is how lucky I really am.
Mm.
You know, I beat
Yeah.
that. And it took a long time to beat that.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing it. Like I like listening to you talk about what you saw on that day just puts me in the mindset of like when I sit and have, like watch movies. I watched a few movies and documentaries, and I know none of that equates to actually being there. But thank you for your service, for you being there and just, jeopardizing your health and your well-being for those that needed you. Because that moment, they always say that's one day that you will never forget where you were at that particular time and place. And I might be telling my age. I always talk about my age, but I was in middle school when that happened. And they didn't tell us anything, but I can tell you everything that happened that day and after that, you know. And I actually got to visit my freshman year of college. It was completely different than what it looks like now. But I felt like the energy, like you could just feel something. It was just like a real airy, you know, and it was quiet. So I know that over the years they've done different things and stuff, but thank you for sharing that with us. So when that happened, like it took you all them years to get the diagnosis of having cancer. Like, did
Well,
you experience any health issues or anything?
so in 2012, I was living in Mexico at the time, my wife and daughter, and I started getting sick,
Mm,
and I had gone to the hospital down there, and they told me I had pneumonia and a collapsed lobe of my lung,
mm.
and that really like freaked me out. However, when they told me, I left the hospital. They were just like, "Where you going?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll take care of this at home."
Your lung is collapsed.
It took, it took me it took me 5 years to actually get diagnosed.
Mm,
And it was in 2026. We came back to the United States in 2015. I came back to launch my speaking career and my book. And in 2016, I was sick for the whole year. And I want to say it was summer of 2017. There was an eclipse. So the three of us had gone to Helen, Georgia to go up on top of the hill and watch the eclipse. However, I couldn't even walk up the hill. I was profusely sweating. My chest was pounding. You ever get one of those experiences where your chest is pounding, but you could hear it up, like
yeah,
my head was
yeah.
it was just pounding,
Yes.
right? And and I had to turn around and walk away and go down in the car. And in the car, I was profusely sweating. It was just like there's something really wrong, you know. And my wife and daughter came back, and we went to the hospital, and that's when the doctor told me that I had malignant cancer in front of my then 11-year-old daughter. And my first instinct was to throat punch him. I was like, how can you say something like that in front of a kid?
Right.
Like what? And that was the first step of my journey into the medical establishment, and how there are a lot of doctors and people in the medical field that do not belong in the medical field. Need to learn how to talk to people, not talk down to them, because I'm not one of these people that accepts being talked down to.
Mhm.
And I've had my share of verbal altercations with with some
I bet.
doctors and hospital administrators, and I was becoming an advocate for patients.
Mm,
In 2020, I had 8 to 12 procedures and surgeries
mm,
that really, like, I believe something happened during anesthesia, because it seemed like every month I was going under. And I have memory gaps that span 2 to 3 years where I'll
mm.
be saying something, and my wife or daughter will be like, yeah, that happened like 2 years ago. And I think it happened like a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
but what's gone on after that in 2021, my whole life I had knee operations ever since I was a little kid, and I had 8 knee operations in my life. And in 2021, I had a knee ablation that gave me 3 blood clots that almost killed me. So it's been an awe-inspiring life for me,
Mhm.
because I look at everything now like a child in awe.
Yeah.
You could tell me, oh, you know what, you got cancer. I'd be like, okay, I gotta take the smile off my face. I was told they were treating me 3 times for cancer. They only write once. However,
Mm,
I have the scars for all 3 times. And one of the biggest things in 9/11 community, from what I understand, is male breast cancer. And 2 times they told me they were treating me for male breast cancer when they were taking lipomas out. I have scars. I have scars all over my body.
mhm.
And one of the things that I started to develop for myself was this, just a way of dealing with mental stress. Just a deep down burning desire to overcome my stinking thinking, and why I thought certain things at the time, where
Mhm.
I was always looking at impending doom, worst
Mhm.
case scenarios, and it was all trauma responses.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that was going to be my next question of like how did getting that diagnosis and things impact. I know it impacted your physical well-being, but how did it impact your mental well-being? Because I know I've heard stories of people, getting diagnosed with different things and it affects people differently. So, where the course of where you were in your life at that time, did it have a major impact on your life? I mean, well, your mental health at that time?
absolutely,
Mhm,
absolutely. We so my wife and I would get into arguments
mhm,
about the word cancer, because
mhm,
they weren't saying it was cancer. They were saying it was tumor,
mm,
right? And you're having these stupid arguments about words. And she wouldn't say cancer for the longest time. And it wasn't until one of the procedures before, where they started talking about cancer. And it was like the doctor had said in the emergency room cancer, and then after that it was tumor. So it was kind of like,
inconsistent.
yeah, it was like, what is this? I know something's really wrong. Um, and I had gotten a flexible bronchoscopy and a rigid bronchoscopy before my 9-hour surgery. Not that day, but within a couple months.
Mhm,
And during one of those procedures, and I don't remember which one, they had nicked the carcinoid tumor, which started spewing all this nasty stuff throughout my body that almost killed me, and
mm.
it brought me into like 5, 7 days in the hospital. And it was amazing to me how nurses are. It was amazing to me, like, how nurses know more than doctors. And that started blowing my mind. That really
Mhm.
started, like, 'cause I was listening to the nurses, and listening to how they were talking, and how they would eye roll when a doctor would say something. They'd just be like, like, and I'd be watching them going, they're smarter than the doctors. And
Yeah.
nurses have tremendously helped me so much that my wife is now an RN. She
Oh,
went
that's
to school.
amazing.
She went to school back to school at 48, to be an RN at 50 years old. National Honor Society. Like,
Wow. Shout out to her. That's amazing. So your journey influenced her in a positive way. She went back to school and got her whole nursing license, and that is not easy. Educate. from what I hear, it's not easy. I started off as a nursing major, and as soon as I seen that syllabus and all that stuff with science and maths, I said, nope, not for me. No, I just like no. 17-year-old me, I was like, absolutely not. No, I switched my major in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. So yes, I agree. I've worked with a ton of nurses, and they are angels in disguises in many cases. And I feel like a lot of times with the medical field, the doctors get so much props that nurses, get the bottom of the barrel. But I'm glad that in your situation, they came through for you. So that is amazing.
Well,
So
but I
well, you met some good ones.
I met some great ones, but I just have to tell you this story real quick because it's one of those things where it's like God has a funny sense of humor.
Sure do.
That's what I've come to realize about. Right? So I go through this 9-hour surgery, go through all this pain and just beating myself up, man. And it was like you can't even this comes under the file of you can't even make this stuff up. So during this 5 to 7 days I was in the hospital or whatever, one of the pain doctors tripped over the line and bent the epidural in my back.
Oh my God.
One of the nurses tripped over my chest tube and pulled it out. And the granddaddy of them all was my nurse was cleaning my catheter and she tripped over the line and pulled it out halfway.
Oh my God. Ooh, ooh.
And
Oh no.
I can see that now laughing, but it took me like a year to be able to pee straight. I mean, it was one of those things like you can't even make this stuff up.
There has to be a malpractice lawsuit somewhere because
There's
that is horrific.
there's just things that you don't even want to
Oh my God.
any stuff like that. It was just it was completely the whole experience has I realize now the whole experience has brought me to who I am.
Mm.
Right. I wouldn't wish any of this stuff on my worst enemy, you
Oh
know.
my God. Yeah.
But it's it's my life.
Yeah.
Everybody has stories.
Definitely.
So I tell these stories because I want to encourage people to understand one thing first and foremost. You don't have time. So you have to execute on your ideas now. You have to find that God within. You have to, look in the mirror and just be yourself because everybody else is taken. And there's so many people now, they're looking at like social media and how everything's like the highlighted reel, and they're looking at all this picture perfect stuff. And that's just not life. That's not what life is. We're all going through something right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. And what I've realized during my 58 years on this volcanic meatballs, nobody laughs or cries in a different language.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that profoundly affects me every day because I want to encourage people. Look, man, we're all different, yet we all have these same commonalities. And let's start talking about our commonalities rather than our differences. And I think that's when we can move past whatever nonsense we're going through. I want to be there for people that, one of my catchphrases, I'm here to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. It's because people need a wake-up call. If people have not gone through any kind of stresses in their lives, I feel sorry for them. I really do. Because I encourage people and I wish just enough pain, misery, and suffering for people to change. And that is something that, I encourage people to live their life, because I've met amazing people along this quest and have influenced me so much to really get out of my stinking thinking, to look at my life as a positive influence for myself. And if that shines on to other people, so be it, because I'm not going to shut up till I die. Now that I have beautiful people like you inviting me on podcasts and being able to talk and given the opportunity to share my story, man, I ain't going to shut up. I want to encourage people to be the best version of themselves.
Okay. Yes. See, I told y'all he was going to break it. Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about
Sorry, I go off on these tangents.
No. That's fine. Look, I am okay with that. That is perfectly fine. your recovery, like going through your recovery process, what was the pivotal moment, whether it was in your recovery process of, healing through the cancer and all that stuff, that you realized that you wanted to, as you like to say, get out of your stinking thinking and really shift your life into a better, on a better path?
So I've had these epiphanies along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time where it was like I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't feel my legs. I had peripheral neuropathy and still do to this day. And what I started learning about was epigenetics. What I started to learn about was just the mind and heart connection and what the true brain is, because the true brain is not here. The
Mm-hmm.
true brain is here. It's in our
Mm-hmm.
heart. And that is like, that's the soul connection. That's the God within. That's the being that we have to connect to, right? To be able to move forward, you have to have this heart and brain coherence. And what I started to really understand about myself was like, I used to hear these voices. It was my old sensei in Mexico going, get up, take the beating,
Mm-hmm.
get up again, take the beating. And it was always about like paralyzed in fear. I used to be a high-end earner in real estate and I couldn't even pay the light bill. I couldn't, I'm in bed months at a time, weeks at a time, days at a time. There were some days where I had no belief in myself and I was self-isolating, self-sabotaging. And I would listen more and more to one of my mentors, Keurig Ashley. I would listen to Les Brown. I would listen to all these motivational speakers and influences, to where during this whole process, it became a Les Brown Power Voice speaker. And that was like one of those aha moments in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the epiphanies that I had with learning about epigenetics and how the heart and brain coherence is so important was I had to go for a yearly physical for the 9/11 community. And I had to get an x-ray. And when a doctor came in, all she said was, have you ever had a bad x-ray? And I just like, real quick, I was going to like react. And then I was like, you know what? Whatever she tells me is not going to make me have a bad day. Just won't. It's going to be maybe an incident in that day, but it's not going to be the whole day. And I refused to walk out of this place without a smile on my face. And then what I found out was she didn't even have my records. So what she was looking at on the x-ray was actually my mid and lower lobe gone, and it was just cloudy. So she thought that there was something really bad. Well, yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
She didn't even have my information, right? And that was the day that I realized I can never come to conclusions, because it's always going to be different information brought into my psyche, my mindset, right? So if I come to conclusions for anything and somebody brings me information, that means I have to remain open to change. And that was a humbling experience, because I was always I always had to be the loudest. I always had to show. And it's like, nah, you really don't. When life will humble you, it'll beat you down.
With the quickness. Okay. With the quickness. But like you said, when you're open to just change and different things, life can take you on so many wonderful paths. Things
I
that you would never been able to envision for yourself.
never thought in a million. I used to always like egotistically think I'd be famous for something I've done in business. Nah, man. I got famous for being a 9/11 cancer guy. That was so humbling. However, that being said, I help thousands of people all around the world. So how can all this experience be bad for me? Even being molested as a child, for the longest time, it just dragged me and dragged me and dragged me and dragged me, to where I didn't start dealing with that until I was in my 40s. So I'd be speaking at convention centers and just talking about real estate and finance and all this stuff. And I'd get accolades for it. And I'd walk off stage thinking that I was a piece of garbage, because there was things in my head that I never worked out, and I believe we all go back to our childhood. We're just children in adult bodies. And if we haven't mentally figured out who we are, I'm 58 years old. I can't blame mommy and dad. I can't blame siblings or cousins or experiences in my life. The only thing I can blame is myself for not giving me the grace to understand that these stories, and that's all they are stories, no matter how horrific we would think, they're just stories with emotional attachments. And when we get over those emotional attachments, and it's hard work. It's not easy. Not easy when you're looking at yourself as the root cause. It's not easy when you start to realize, hey, you know what? I am the problem.
Okay, wake them up. Go ahead, wake them up.
So it's like, no, it's always about, when I listen to people's stories and you don't know my story. It's like, no, I know your story. I know everybody's story because they're just stories. What's your emotional attachment to? Who are you blaming? And I'm not, what do they call that? Blame, shaming, or whatever it is. Whatever.
Victim blaming.
Victim blame. Not at all. Not at all. What I'm doing is I'm putting a mirror up to your face. And I want you to look in the mirror into yourself and give yourself that apology that's never going to come. And when you do that, your life starts to change. And it's hard work. It can be violent work in your head because you have to sit in those stories. This is a temple for a reason, right? This is the only real estate that you can own. And once you sit in it, are you going to live in the hood or are you going to live in the palace? I live in the palace every day. However, in the palace, there's always problems. So there are obstacles more so than all these devastating things that happen to us. Because I've been brought down on my knees plenty of times, man. And I just sit here and being able to tell my story is so cathartic for me. It gives me a new understanding of who I am. And it gives me an understanding of my love and my grace. Because I know I can't teach people anything. I can't. I can only regurgitate information about my story to help people help themselves. But I can't teach you anything. I can't teach you. I can't teach your audience. And the reason why I say that is because you have to use your own discernment in this world. You have to use all your experiences to listen, and whatever you can use. And if you can't use anything else, discard it and move on to the next person and take a little bit from everybody that you listen to. And that's it. I am not the end. I had somebody one time tell me, I want to be just like you. And I was like, what, neurotic? Are you kidding me? You need to aim higher, man. You really do. And it's like, why not become yourself? And I think that's one of the biggest things that people are afraid to be is themselves, because they're always afraid of what somebody's going to say, or, oh, you're uppity, or you're too involved in yourself. It's called self-respect for a reason. Called personal development for a reason.
Okay. And it's funny you say that because that instantly made me think of Dr. Joe Dispenza and breaking the habit of being yourself. Yeah. And I I started listening to the audiobook, and a lot of the time he talks about, in order to break the habit of being yourself who you are, you have to release the attachments, everything that you're attached to, your job, all your titles, all of the materialistic things. And once you do that and you become in space, right, then you rummage in that area of just being. And you go to the whole supernatural part and all of that. But for a long time, I was so conflicted. I'm like, what do you mean release the now I know,
Become nothing.
Yes, become nothing. That was like, what do you mean become nothing? I am something. I'm someone. But
that's ego, right? That's edging.
It is. It is. But like when you don't know that, it's just like, okay, I don't want to teeter-totter over here. Just like a lot of what you just mentioned, the digging deep is like shadow work, like unveiling the shadow, unraveling the onion, and getting down to the nitty-gritty of what the problem is. Because I dabbled in shadow work sometime last year, and I was just like, oh, so this is why I have the attachments to this. And it's just the attachments, the emotions to certain things. And I was able to piece, like, what I thought they were the causation of to really what it was. And for me personally, it was a lot of childhood trauma and childhood stuff that my attachments were to. But
Trauma
like you
bonding
said,
in relationships, it's tremendous.
yeah, and you can even have those to like family. I think a lot of people, when you think trauma bonding, you think like intimate partners, but no, it can be family. It can
Sure.
be family. So I'm glad you even went down that alley of the whole like just shadow work and stuff, because I don't think a lot of people can correlate why that is so important on your healing journey.
Well, if you know, the thing for me, right, and again, this is just from my experience. Um, it took me like I was able to sit in my head for tens of thousands of hours while I went through this. And like literally, I self-isolated in my bedroom or in my living room
Mhm.
and just listened to Joe Dispenza, Jose Silva, Kirk Ashley, Tony Rott, like endless,
Yeah.
endless. And what I started to realize is every time I would go for a surgery or a procedure, um, a week or two before, I would start healing before I was even getting stitched up.
Mm.
And that accelerated how quick I could heal. And now my superpower is me just being me. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's just, Craig Sotkovsky is my name. Who I am and who I help is my being, because I don't know who I'm reaching right now. We have the
Mhm.
opportunity of talking all over the world. I don't even have to leave my office in my living room, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, we can influence so many people's decisions about themselves if they want to work, if they want to work on themselves. People, for the most part, want to work on other things
Mhm.
except for themselves. And it's powerful when you are able to walk away from your shadow, because that means you've turned on that light. There's no longer a shadow. There's no longer a part of you that is self-loathing and lingering and why me and why is all of this stuff happening to me? And it's like, well, why not? Why is this stuff happening for me? I
Right.
have an amazing life and I haven't even started yet. I'm 58 years old. I'm
Yeah.
looking at this as like a little kid in awe.
Yeah.
Mental health is so important
Mhm.
because it's mental health. Nobody knows you but you. And what I've experienced with people is, if I have another relationship, and by the way, I'm in the process of getting divorced.
Oh no,
And
I'm sorry.
no, it's not. No, it's not. When I say that, I say that with grace, because her and I have been through so much that I just want the best for her, because I really do love her. She really does love me. She wants the best for me. And
Mhm.
you go through so much. You go through so much pain, misery, and suffering. Like, I don't know what it's like when she was walking by me just to check if I was still breathing. I
Mhm.
want to free her from that. I want her to just be a normal person per se, right?
Yeah.
And these things that we go through, they're part of our healing journey. They're part
Mhm.
of the love that we have for other people. I just want people to be happy, joyful.
Mhm.
Forget about the apathy. I don't want anybody to be apathetic. That means you haven't grown. You haven't shown yourself to who you are. Tap into your empathy. We're all going through something right now. It's
Mhm.
free from it. Be free from it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when you go through so many things with people, you develop a relationship with that person
Mhm.
that is timeless. It
Mhm.
really is. And like the stories that I'm telling you now are this big
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the stories. There's some
Yeah.
stories I can't even talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, like, now in your life now, and like you said, we're all going through some things. What do you do to keep yourself like in alignment and just as like your personal self-care? Because I see you out in nature a lot and moving your body. So what are some other things that you do to keep yourself together?
As soon as I wake up, I listen to two things.
Mm-hmm.
One is Jose Silva, the
Mm.
Silva Method, right? It's a 17-minute morning meditation
Mm-hmm.
where he takes you and guides you into you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joe Dispenza's morning meditation. So it's like as soon as I wake up, I listen to those two right off the bat, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the world, right? I'm ready. I should say I'm ready for my world. And people are like, well, what do you aspire to be? I aspire to be the best in the world at what I do.
Yeah.
Not what you do, not what somebody else does, what I do. And that's me being nothing. I want to be the best at it. So in order to do that, I have to constantly do the work. And that's where people fall short. They don't want to put the sweat equity into their life. They don't want to create that generational wealth. That's through healing. That's the abundance of life, is when you can self-heal. That means you've been through the sweat equity. You've been through the mental boxing. You've been through kicking your own ass. And that's what I think we do so much, is we just beat ourselves down so much and we don't ask for help. And I think that's one of the worst things. That's pride, ego, all of that stuff. I'm the first one. I raise my hand. They're like, well, but you're weak. Lions aren't weak.
Yeah.
Lions just don't care about what the sheep say. And that's one of the things, when you understand yourself and your power within, and you tap into that heart and brain coherence, and you attract other people that are into the heart and brain coherence, and that light just gets bigger and bigger, and that's how you develop a community. That's how you develop all of these beautiful things that the world needs, because the world needs your story. The world needs your audience story. And I believe if you're not telling your story, number one, you haven't worked on yourself with the emotional attachments that are bad for you, because we have something called the reticular activating system. Everybody does. And the RAS just wants to please you. So if you have these thoughts of bad, guess what? Your reticular activating system just wants to please you. So it's going to develop bad relationships. Just wants to please you. It's going to put you in circumstances that are bad for you because it just wants to please you. When we find out who we really are, that God within, that universal light that helps our brothers and sisters heal, man, life changes. Look to mentors, look to coaches, look to, whoever is going to inspire you to take action. Forget about the motivation, forget about the inspiration. Take action. Inspire yourself to take action. Get up off your ass. Hey, look, it's okay not to be okay, but just don't sit there. Plenty of days, man. I didn't even want to take a shower. I didn't even want to change my socks. I didn't want to get up and do anything. Self-loathing. Oh, why is my life like this? Because we develop it for ourselves. People are like, well, you don't know the relationships I've been in. Yeah, I do. I've been in the same ones, same crappy relationships, because I know what trauma bonding is. And when you trauma bond with people, you enable each other. You enable each other to be just comfortable enough to be miserable again. And this is something that the world doesn't need. The world needs more love, encouraging words. We beat ourselves up from our past circumstances. And honestly, everybody has a past, but that's why we leave it there. It's behind us, right? Our present, which is the gift, that's what we need to open. That's going to show us our future. And I'm here to tell people, man, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Ooh, I love it. Oh, I love it. I got chills. I'm going to make sure I do my Dr. Joe Dispenza of the brain and heart coherence meditation. I that's one of my faves by him. I don't know if you've done that. I'm pretty sure you have done it before, but he has some good stuff. And I told you how I feel about Jose Silva. Not that I'm still learning that stuff. It's different, but definitely some good stuff, especially when you talked about just like getting everything in alignment, because your body will tell you when something is wrong. And I feel like if you don't listen and like take the signs, you will burn out so fast. Like I dealt with that a couple months ago, and it was like the worst physical feeling and definitely worst mental feeling I've ever felt, ever. So thank you for all of that. I told y'all he was going to come with it today. I told y'all. Just imagine being one of his coaching clients. So let's talk about that a little bit. About your coaching and everything else that you have working on right now.
So I have a book out. Everybody Pays a Vig. One Man's Entrepreneurial Journey. I lost my 9/11 book. Notes. Oh, it's T-Mobile gave out my SIM card number, and everything I owned intellectually got hacked, and I've been fighting them for the last couple of years.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
so in the process of that, I'm writing another book called The Shaman from Jersey. And, people like, it's very arrogant. How could you be a shaman? I'm a shaman for myself, which means I'm able to alchemize all this chemistry set within. Like I said, you could tell me something, you can tell me I have terminal cancer, I'm going to be dead, in 30 minutes. Guess what? I'm going to die with a smile on my face because I'm not having, and all these outside influence. I want to just touch on this real quick, right? We all have these people, places, and things that stop us, right? So it's all external. Everything about us is external. We live within ourselves every minute of every day. So it's the external that drives us to be either a better person or a worse person. Our circumstances or failed behaviors and all of these failed relationships and all of these things are in the external world. However, there's something called the quantum field. When you can tap into this external Wi-Fi, and this is not for everybody. This is for somebody that literally wants to get rid of the crap that they have in their head. And when you tap into this external Wi-Fi, the people, places, and things change. Your circumstances change. The ability to see different things changes. And when you're able to glow and live in that glow, that's from your internal. So your internal world shows you the outside world, as your outside world shows your internal world. That's when you're working on yourself. So get rid of all the stinking thinking. Get rid of all the relationships that are like cancer, because they are. They'll consume you, right? Instead of you consuming yourself and understanding, hey, you know what? I have to go within. I'm going to take a mental health month, 6 months, a year. If everybody took a year off, you're like, how do you take a year off? We got bills to pay. We got all this stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we have 24 hours in a day. You have 8 hours of sleeping and technically 8 hours of work. So you have another 8 hours. If you add that up, it's 2,920 hours a year, right? Now think about this. Science has said that if you study one thing 19 minutes a day, right? At the end of 365 days, you're in the top 1% of that field. 19 minutes a day. There are people 8 hours a day watching TV and ingesting all of the nonsense that is like, oh, I need to live, and this so-and-so TV show and that show. What about your show? What about your book that you're supposed to be writing, the songs you're supposed to be singing? What about the relationships that you're supposed to get into that help people grow and not minimize them? Why don't we discover in those 2,920 hours of who we are? And if you do that for yourself, man, there's no saying what you cannot accomplish. That's it. If we're fixated on all of this negative, convoluted thinking, about who we are, because we're designed to think negativity. We're designed to think fight, flight, or freeze. We're no longer being chased by saber-toothed tigers anymore. It could be your mother-in-law. That's the pain. It could be your father-in-law. It could be your spouse. It could be your kids that are the pains in your life. So you have to alter the way you think. I'm not saying think like me. No, just think different. Just think different for yourself. And you can move from this point forward. You can have a beautiful life in this craziness that's going on in the world nowadays, man. There's so much craziness. I just heard that a girl got killed in Athens, Georgia, at the college.
Oh wow! I didn't hear that story.
She just got killed like the other day, just because some random person decided to kill her. It's like, what? No, man.
Sad.
No. Love is the answer. So we think about love and we think about fear. Most of us think in the fear modality. Think about the love modality. How would love respond? This Kirk Ashley's book. How would love respond in your life? Think about the negativity and all the disempowering thoughts that we have. Love is the answer to everything that we do. Even if you're having a bad relationship, turn around and give it love and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that so-and-so doesn't deserve love. Well, you know what? When you say that, neurological linguistically programming, you believe you don't deserve love.
Yeah.
You know, I encourage people just love your love your anger away.
Mm. Yeah. Like I had a thought recently, like every negative like emotion or feeling, I want to become friends with it. Because if I become friends with it and invite it in, I won't have so much resistance when certain things happen. And it's an adjustment, but my way to handle things have gotten a lot better. Have definitely gotten a lot better. I just look at situational things very different now. So like I definitely understand about that, and I'm always the person to say, lead with love, but unfortunately we live in a world where everyone don't think that way. And my hopes is that people start to do more internal work on themselves and heal and whatever resources they take from that to help them get to that way. But without even getting up and taking a foot and moving forward and trying, you're never going to get anywhere, unfortunately. But if we got people like you that, tell your story, and you have talked so much today about your story and what it taught you and where you are now in life. What is it that you want someone that's listening today to take from your experiences and everything that you have offered us today?
First, we're all going through something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And excuse my language.
Uh-oh.
Whoever you're thinking about, nobody has their shit together 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be the minister, the pastor, it could be the business guy or girl. Nobody has this together 100%. They just don't. It's human behavior. You can't be a perfect individual.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible. The art of perfecting yourself is mastering yourself. And when you master yourself, that just means you've learned the basics. It's always an ongoing conversation with yourself. And we have to continue to move forward and
Yeah.
stop our stinking thinking. There's a reason why the rear view mirror is so small, right? And if you're going to look out the windshield, it's vast for a reason.
Mm.
Even when you're looking back, your neck hurts. Don't do that. Don't do that. And when you have a thought that's bad, sit in it. Just don't stay there. It's okay not to be okay. And everybody thinks that, oh, I have to live this perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. I don't care who it is. Nobody
Not
has.
even the celebrities.
Oh, the celebrities are worse.
Yeah.
They're worse.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about all the stuff that's going on just in Hollywood now.
Oh my
All
goodness.
the things being said and all of these things. I was just listening to some stuff about a very well-known minister, pastor, or whatever.
Oh God. I think I know what you're
And
talking about.
I gotta tell you something. I saw a video, and this is a person that honestly had me in awe.
Yeah.
I watched him like the light went on the stage and he wasn't there. And I watched him walk from the nosebleed seats all the way down to the stage. And as he was talking, I was just like, whoa. Because I want to say at least twice the bucket went out for money. The
Oh
bucket
my
went out.
God.
The bucket went out, right? And people are like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. And I saw a video a couple weeks ago, and we're talking about a place where it holds thousands of people. There was like 20 people in the audience because of all of these stories that are coming out. And I was just like, well, there you go. Coming to conclusions. I don't come to conclusions anymore. I just refuse to. Because there's always things going to alter stories. I don't know if these things are true about anybody. That's why I don't come to conclusions. Because everything can be pieced together to make somebody look bad, or it can be true. I don't know. I just want to be a truthful person. I'm not 100%. I'm like 80-20. 80% I'm like on point, 20%, yeah, I still got mushad in my head. But it's always a new conversation. How can I be better than who I was 10 minutes ago? I used to compare myself to who I was 20 years ago, and it used to depress me. Now I look at that life and I was like, I hated myself then. When I was speaking, when I was traveling, talking about real estate and all of this stuff, man, this is the only real estate you can own, so you have to get out of your stinking thinking,
Yeah.
and in my experience is like, there's so many people that have so much love in their heart and they're afraid to show it because they think being vulnerable makes you weak. That's not true. Vulnerability is your strength. Vulnerability is how people get to know you. However, people can exploit your vulnerability. And that's one of the things where it's like, I'll never stop being vulnerable because I know nobody's going to exploit my vulnerability. That's why I wrote the book, Everybody Pays a Vig. I wanted to get all that nonsense out so nobody could hold it against me. And it took me years to write. Years. Just to get over, you're never going to get over the bad things that happen to you. You never will, because they're thoughts, right? However, you could shrink the time that you think about when you do the work, right? So if you have that fleeting thought, and we all have that, oh, here it comes. Here comes that mental freight train, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Deal with the mental freight train. Look at it. Sometimes that light at the end of the tunnel isn't the train that's going to run you over. It's actually your calling, your blessing.
I like that.
I wake up every morning with gratitude. There was many times I woke up and I was just like, man, I can't go through this again. I can't go through this day. I know what's going to happen. I know the pain that I'm going to be in. And now, I still wake up. I'm in pain. But it's like, you know what? Been there, done that. Let's get up now. And if I can't feel my leg, I'll sit there and I'll shake it out and I'll rub it and I'll move it around. And then, the circulation's coming back. Okay, let's stand now.
Right.
And
do what you gotta do. Get up.
Yeah, get up. Because if you're not up, you're down. If you're not learning, you're dying. And I've been told that, I should have been dead this time or should have been dead that time. It's like, you know what? I wasn't living at that time. I was in this mental torture. I was okay to die. Nah, man. No, it was Les Brown. It was like, nah, you got to move past that chalk outline, man. You got to keep ahead of that chalk outline and keep going. And he asked me one time, he was like, he said, like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, and this is where my head was. And this is 2020. I was, going through these surgeries and stuff. And I was like, I just want to have 1 million people come to my funeral. And he's like, well, explain that. And I was like, well, because then that means I influence tens of millions of people. He's like, how about influencing tens of millions of people now and don't even worry about your funeral? Stay ahead of that chalk outline. And it's just different perspectives.
Yeah.
And you take these perspectives and you look at them and you develop your perspective on life. And all I want to do is encourage people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
Just think different, man. Don't think like me. Don't think like you. Just think for themselves.
Don't think like me.
No, because it's how can somebody think like me? They're not me. How can somebody think like you? They're not you. We all have these unique experiences. No matter how tragic, no matter how debilitating that these thoughts are, we can overcome things. And it just requires that work. It requires that first step. Instead of looking at the whole staircase, just take the first step, man. That's it.
Just take the first step. Ooh, I love it. I got chills from this whole conversation. I appreciated everything that you said. And I hope that someone that's listening gains some insight or at least enough insight to take the first step wherever they are on their journey. Just continue to move forward. So thank you so much for coming and pouring into me, pouring into the listeners, and just just being you. But before we get out of here, please tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, your websites, any other information you want to put out there to people. Let us know now.
The book is on Amazon. Everybody Pays a Vig, One Man's Entrepreneurial Journey.
Mm-hmm.
All my social media, because I'm not that original, is Craig Sotkovsky, and it's AIGSOTKOVSKY. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and it's The Shaman from Jersey. That's the next book, and that's pretty much my life right now, is alchemizing who I am.
Okay. Awesome. So y'all hear that? Go tap in with him. I'm going to put all of his links in the description box so you guys can go follow him because he posts some very inspirational things daily on social media. So check out his stories and any other interviews and sessions that he has done. Are you still looking to get on more podcasts and tell your story and things
Yeah,
of that nature? You are?
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Y'all hear that? So go tap in with him so you can have him on your show. But again, thank you so much, sir, for embracing Chronicles of a Virgo platform with your beautiful spirit, your presence, and all of your words of encouragement. I appreciate you so, so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story.
Of course.